Hello everybody, Crazy Canuck here, and welcome to Course Design 201. This is a brand new tutorial series aimed at some more intermediate to advanced techniques in the course designer for PGA Tour 2K21. If you are new to the channel, if you're new to course design, I highly recommend you check out my Course Design 101 videos first, as those dive into the real basics of how to use the course design tool in this game. Those that have already watched the 101 series might notice that these 201 series, I tend to bounce around a little bit more with topics. It doesn't really flow as nice as it does in 101, just because there's a lot of little mini topics that we're going to get to. So I'm going to try to use the timestamps as best as possible. I'm still new with trying to figure out how to do that, but it shouldn't be too hard. So I'm going to use the timestamps so you can find the information when you need it a little bit easier. So in episode 1, we are going to talk about advanced plot design. So I'm going to show you a few things, kind of how I tackle a plot when I first open it up to create something that I want to work with. We're also going to look at how to make maybe some more dramatic features like bigger mountains that look realistic. We're also going to look at a more ocean side plot, maybe make some more dramatic cliffs, things like that. And at the end, I'm going to show you how to remove the auto-flatten feature. So whenever you lay down terrain, like fairways or anything like that, you might notice that the terrain kind of flattens on its own. I'm going to show you how to create a plot that doesn't do that. So we'll dive into that as well. All right, so I have a plot here. It is in the Delta theme. And again, whenever you are getting started, you need to have an idea first, okay? So have an idea of generally what you want your course to look like. I use the internet for a lot of inspiration. I look up a lot of golf courses and try to like say, hey, that's a pretty cool look. Maybe I'll go with something like that. Are you going to have lots of elevation? Are you going to have not a lot of elevation? Is it going to be coastal? Is it going to be inland? Is it going to be tight routing? Is it going to be more spread out? What do you want? Okay. So that's really up to you. I'm going to show you how to add a little bit more elevation. So I tend to go shift more to the more fantasy style courses. My courses are a little bit more fantasy oriented. So I really like to play with elevation. So for this plot, what I'm envisioning is maybe half of the plot is raised up, 100, maybe 200 feet, and maybe half the holes are up on a plateau, and the course kind of works its way down into a valley and then brings its way back up. So that's kind of what I want to go for. So what I'm going to do is, it might be helpful for you to turn the trees down so you can actually see the plot you're working with. But again, you don't have to do that. But this, just for tutorial's sake, it might be easier to see what we're doing to the land when we get rid of all the trees. So this corner here, I'm going to start by raising it up. And this is, again, something we learned in 101. Fuzzy brush, just making it really big. Again, you can advance edit and maybe play with the size and the shape of the brush. So here I made it really skinny, fat, or whatever you want. Okay, so I'm going to take this area and maybe we'll raise it over 100 feet. And again, the fuzzy brush, just to incorporate more of a smoother transition here. As I make my way down, I'm still raising it, but it's a little bit lower. So it's not super drastic when it goes from like 100 feet down to basically flat. As I make my way down, I'm kind of just raising it less and less each time until I kind of reach the bottom. Okay, so now as you can see, like if I were to lay a hole down here, for example, you have some nice opportunities to really open up some nice views of a few holes down below here. And we're going to talk about routing as well in another video, how I route my courses, but giving those views can be really helpful in the aesthetic part of your course. Kind of having 18 holes really spread apart from each other. I don't know, I just feel like you're playing 18 different courses like that. So tighter routing is sometimes better. A lot of people see this large plot and feel like they need to use all of it. Don't feel that way. Okay, like for my newest course, I may be using 30% of the plot. Okay, and then you think, well, what do you do with the rest of the plot? Well, you can cover it with, you know, trees, block it off, whatever, people won't see it. Or maybe you want to add some dramatic features, for example. So I'm going to try to add maybe a larger mountain right here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is there's going to be a few different brushes I'm going to use. I'm going to start with a fuzzy brush. So let's make this mountain really steep and dramatic. So you can only go up to a certain height, but once you get up to a certain height, I think it's around 600 feet, the top will just flatten. So don't go that high. I think it's about 600 feet is the maximum. So this is going to be a fairly large mountain. I'm actually going to make this a little bit smaller. So I just hit undo there. Mountain a little bit smaller. And I'm just raising it up. That, and then maybe I have another part of my mountain here that's a bit lower. So right now it just looks like a big hill. But let's maybe create some more dramatic ridges to this mountain. So here we can start to use some of these brushes here. So I really like this explosion brush, which is on page 3. Okay. And just play with this. You can change the advanced edit. You know, just raise it up a little bit. We're creating some ridges, maybe spin it around if you want. So I'm just kind of spinning the D-pad and then I'm just spamming my A button a couple times. Don't do it too many times. You can see there we're getting some really nice kind of exposed faces and elevation here. Okay. And honestly, just play around with some of the brushes. Some of the brushes that are really cool that can give you some good looks. This is a neat little brush if you kind of want like a little spine. Okay. Stuff like that. And if I want to, maybe I want like a smaller kind of, almost like a summit. Make a smaller part and bring it way up. That, and then play with these little explosion-y brushes. I mean, I've seen you can make volcanoes, making volcanoes. Hard to put lava, but I guess you can use some different like cart path surfaces that are kind of more red if you want. But and there you go. I mean, kind of a cool look, especially in different lighting. But this explosion brush, which we're also going to be using for cliffs, is a really, really good one to create a little bit more subtle raises. Now, one thing you want to avoid, for example, some people want to create like large mountains, and they might use like a sharp brush and they'll raise it high. Oh, that one actually didn't do what I wanted. That actually doesn't look too bad. That actually went over 600 feet and it's still pretty flat, but that's not what I wanted. That's actually kind of a cool look. There is some, yeah, so some people like to use these kind of brushes, harder brushes, and try to make a mountain like this. Okay, and what you get here, if you really close in on it, if you look at the side, is the texture almost starts to tear right here. Okay, this is not a good look. So you want to avoid this text. It looks like the texture is just like stretching out. Okay, so you want to avoid that. That just does not look good. Like, just look at those two mountains. You tell me which looks a little more realistic. Obviously, we've spent more time on that one, but still. Okay. Try to avoid using those brushes. So for mountains, again, just a review here. Start with the fuzzy brush to get some sort of elevation, and then play with this these third page brushes are really good. That one in particular is really good. This one here, this one, and I really like this brush too. So just kind of play around with the tools, and you might find you make some really cool looking larger features. I mean, I think I'd work on this mountain a little bit. There's a few of these little holes here that I'm not a big fan of, but just play around and then, you know, plant in certain areas and you'll get a really cool looking mountain in no time. So there's mountains, how to create those. Now let's look at trying to create cliffs and like an oceanside plot. So you can actually only do this in certain base themes. So if you go to environment and backdrop, on the Delta theme, if you select this one, as you can see there with the one where there's no mountains in the background, that will give you a plot surrounded by water. So the only plots where that actually happens is the tropical theme, the Delta theme, the steppe theme, and the highlands theme, where you can get 360 degrees of water. Okay, so just a heads up for that. Okay, so when you select that, you get this island, and then, but also if you look, you get this really kind of ugly brownish ridge thing. I don't know what it is. It's like a boundary basically between the water and the land. This is gross. We want to get rid of all this. So what I do, every time I start and I want to do an oceanside plot, I'll just select one of these more coastline shapes. This one, for example. And I'm just going to stretch it out as long as I can. And then I'm just going to sink it into the water. Don't worry about losing lots of land, because again, you're not going to use all of this land. So take it all out. Like this. Doesn't have to be like 100 feet, just as long as you can get it underwater. So you're making it disappear. Go all around the edge of the plot. Mountain here. And there you've got, now that ugly brown transition is gone. And then, you know, you can just have fun with this again, creating some new coastline here. So again, I really like the explosion tool, as this can create some really neat little cliffs. So watch what happens when I sink this into the water pretty deep. Really neat looking. Well, actually, that doesn't look that great, but gotta sink it in the water a little bit more. It's some really cool, really drastic cliffs here. Again, play with it, and gives you the option to create some really nice, natural, craggy looking shoreline here. That's kind of how I create my shores. I don't use this tool a lot. You don't have to go that drastic, obviously. You can do whatever you want, but experimenting. I'm just kind of showing you the tools I tend to use. So you can do that to make maybe a little bit more of a bay, for example. So that would kind of be maybe a neat plot to design a course on. This probably is way too much land also. I don't think I would use this much land to be. Anyway, there's coastlines. We've done mountains. And now we're going to take a look at maybe a little less drastic a plot, but how to get rid of this auto generation of flattening. So I'm going to show you as an example what I mean here. I'm going to lay down a surface, like fairway, for example. Out of fairway. Whatever. Watch what happens to the land when I fill it. How it kind of flattens everything in here. Okay, and here the edge flattened quite a bit, so you've got this huge drastic raise. Some designers really like not to happen and them to flatten everything on their own. So I'm going to show you how to do that and how to make your plot a little bit more realistic. Because like I said at the beginning of the video, we're actually going to start from a completely flat plot of land. Okay, so I'm going to actually head into another plot that I have set up. And I want to give credit to Mayday, who I think I mentioned in my Course Design 101 video. You taught me the fairway transition trick. This is another thing that I've learned from him. He put out a tutorial video, and I just want to send it out to more people. So I give full credit to him on how to do this. Okay. So like I said, we want to get rid of that auto-flattening thing that's happening. So here's just a random plot. I'm going to get rid of, again, the trees just so we can see things a little bit better. All right, so the first thing we want to do is we want to raise things above the water table. Okay, so right now there's a whole bunch of lakes here. We want to get rid of them. Now, remember I said in 101 how we have the red brushes and the blue brushes, and I told you to never use the red brushes? I lied, okay? This is going to be one place where we're actually going to use the red brushes. I'm not still, again, what the red brushes do are a little complicated, but what this is actually going to do is this is going to prevent it from auto-flattening. So I'm going to hit the Sculpt Flatten button, and these red brushes are going to come up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this square here, and I'm going to make it as big as I can. Now, don't worry if this doesn't cover your entire plot, because again, you're not going to need your entire plot. This box won't quite cover the entire plot. But again, like I said, you're not going to need it. Raise it up, I don't know, 40, 50 feet, something like that. And then just hit A once. And as you can see, we now have everything raised up. It's not completely flat, but we want to make it completely flat. So I'm going to now go over to my blue brushes, my landscape flatten, and I'm going to do the same thing. So I have my big square, and again, I'm going to raise, well, you don't actually have to raise it up that high. You don't have to raise it up at all. Oh, I can just hit A here if I want. If you look there, what that's done is now this is a dead flat plot. Okay? Now, I've never designed from dead flat. Dead flat is boring, like to start with. And to create your own undulations on the holes can be really difficult. So I'm going to show you now how to kind of make your plot look randomly hilly and have undulations in them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my landscape raise, and I'm going to select, it doesn't really, it's one of the, you can select any of these fuzzy brushes. I'm going to go with this one, and I'm going to make it really big, about this big. I'm going to maybe edit it so it's a little bit skinnier. But maybe a little bit skinny. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start by kind of auto-generating some larger hills. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to raise it up maybe 40, 50 feet. Let's go. Okay. And now what I'm going to do is I am going to, if you look on my controller, I'm going to hold my D-pad and get it spinning like this. Okay, and while I'm doing that, I'm going to hold down the A button and I'm going to move around the plot. So here like this. All I'm doing is I'm almost like I'm painting the texture. We talked about kind of quick like spam planting and stuff like that. It's almost like I'm spam planting terrain here. So just go around a few times. That area with some undulation. Okay. You see that, and then just do it again. Maybe you want to create now some dips. So maybe I'm going to lower it like 30, 40 feet. Again, I'm just going to get it spinning. Whatever you want here. Now I have some dips and some undulations, some nice little hills, things like that. This gives you a nice little starting point. But still, most of this is really, really flat. You see how it's like really flat? We want to create some really natural, smaller little bumps Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use some different brushes to help create those. So there's a couple good brushes. It's these kind of round hawk-like brushes here, or these like blotchy brushes. Okay, these are probably the two best ones to use in this situation. I've actually used this, I've tried this out on a couple courses. You see how the edge here isn't great? Again, I'm not going to use that edge, so that edge won't even be in play, so I'm not even going to worry about it. So here I'm going to do the same thing, but I'm not going to raise or lower it as much. Okay, I'm going to make it big, but I'm only going to raise it maybe 6 or 7 feet. Get her spinning. Her down. Around the plot. So I'm just going to show you what it looks like in part of the plot here. You see how those pock marks have kind of shown up? So now it's not totally flat anymore. We've got this undulation, which is nice. Keep going with this. Higher, 8 feet or something. Back and forth. Definitely more of a now you've got that nice smaller little undulations in there. So you can do that again with lowering. So do it again, maybe lower it 5 or 6 feet. Repeat. Rounds. You can do as many times as you want. And just go until you get something you like. Go until you get something you like. Really neat idea. And I'm going to show you, once we lay down a fairway, that it won't auto-flatten anymore. So now you have kind of a more random plot. It's a little bit smoother. But now when I try to add fairway, notice it's not going to flatten anymore. Didn't flatten. There, it kept it just like that. Oh, someone clearly just subscribed to my channel. I forgot to turn my alerts off, but whatever. So you see how it's really bumpy now? Okay, that flatten is now gone. So now I will do the flattening myself. Okay. Again, I don't recommend trying this until you really know what you're doing with your flatten tool. But for those that want to know how to do it, this is how it's done. Okay, and you can keep that undulation as close to your fairway as possible. Okay, so that about does it for this first episode. If you guys have any topics that you want me to cover, I have a few things lined up, obvious ones like waterfalls, routing, a little bit more into planting, actually a lot more into planting, maybe a little bit more into the strategy stuff. But if there are any other things that you want me to cover, just let me know in the comments, and try to make that happen. So thank you guys for watching our first episode of Course Design 201, and we'll see you next time.